Rogers TV. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest today is Mayor Ian Boddy of the city of Owen Sound. Ian, welcome. Good to have you back again.
Oh, good to be back on and sharing information.
You were sick there the last time you were on. You've recovered from that quite nicely, I take it?
No, I haven't fully recovered. I'm still a little short of breath at times and still have a cough. And I think that must be a month ago, right? So, yeah, I'm still getting better, but still not perfect.
You know, there's a lot of that going around. People are, whether it's a respiratory virus or COVID hangovers or what, it's there's a lot of that going around, which is probably a good reason for us to encourage people to get their shots.
Yeah, absolutely. I would rather have got the shot than got COVID, frankly. And I was tested positive about 3 days before I was supposed to get my shot. And you know, this time of the year, this past year has been really busy as mayor. We seem to have had more requests coming in, so I've attended a lot more. And I think Friday the 15th and Sunday the 17th are the only days of the calendar between now and the 24th that I don't have something plugged in. So it's a busy time of the year, and I really have to watch my energy.
Very true. Very true. You know, it was funny you should say that because I was talking to some people who went to a funeral down in Kingston, and son of a gun, they got home 2 days later, they got COVID. So these crowd gatherings, you know, they're risky.
Yep. Yeah.
So, but the city council, you're well distanced when you're sitting at city council, aren't you?
Well, I've tested negative enough that I'm sure we're all sitting ducks in a sense, just because of the public appearances and all the things that, that's 9 pretty active people that are out in the communities. But yeah, as far as catching anything from each other, we're probably okay.
If not, the differences of opinion will keep things just a little salty there.
Well, but that's why you want 9 people on council, not one. If I was king, things would be different. Let me tell you. But it's no, that's you want those different opinions.
That's right. That's right. It's right because I mean that's how stuff gets done. That's how we understand each other, is those exchange of ideas that does happen at councils. And it's just not just your municipal council, it's county council as well.
Yeah, 18 of us.
Right.
That makes it apparently it used to be bigger, but that makes it different. Different opportunities to participate with 18 versus 9.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic of county council, Warden Brian Milne was reelected as well, so he will have another term as warden to kind of lead all of you as county councilors.
Yeah, so warden is the chair up at the county. The warden of Grey County gets reelected or reselected every year. It's an annual review, I suppose. The warden is chosen by the 18 councillors from the lower tiers, and that's how he gets to do it.
And you have no inclination to put yourself into that little hot seat, I presume.
No, it's. I think it's too difficult. The city of Owen sounds big enough, and some of the other municipalities that are a little bit smaller, the requirements at the lower tier are less. It's something that a deputy mayor can do more easily, but as a mayor, you'd have to be from a slightly smaller municipality, I think, to make it work.
Yeah, I think you make a very valid point. And I believe deputy mayors have been wardens in the past. I think, was not Arlene Wright?
Arlene Wright is the
or was she county
the
councilor?
only on-sound warden since 1920 when the city left the county, and but the only on-sound warden since we came back, and she was warden for 2 years and quite respected a few
Yes.
years ago.
Yeah, yeah. It's anyway. That's a whole other train of thought, but we'll come back to that because I wanted to ask you about the county budget. But let's move into the city budget because last week, from when we're taping this, and it'll be first run, there was a special meeting of council to deal with the operations budget, and that was a full day session.
Yes, operating budget versus capital budget. Yeah. Operations would be just roads and things. So anything that does not involve capital infrastructure, then just the operations, we've dealt with it. We've wind back when I first became mayor, and lots of people talking in my ear, and we talked about, like, our taxes were too high. Before I became mayor, there's lots of, and even before I was on council, there's lots of chatter that our industrial taxes and our commercial taxes were too high, that it was making it difficult to do business here, that we're losing opportunities for investment. And we know when we do the tax, the ratios of the tax policy, if the residential levy is at a 1, then commercial's at about 1.6 and industrial's about 1.8. So they're paying just that much more in taxes per $100,000 of assessment value. This I don't know how to explain this more clearly, and it's so challenging. So anyway. To try and get those taxes down and taxes down from everybody, we could cut services. Well, we remember from about 2014 election that trying to reduce bus services was a no-go with the community. It's always easier to add services than it is to take services away, or to hold services, not add any, than to try and take them away. So, what does a community, what does a municipality do? It provides the best services, or a balance of services that the community wants and that the community can afford. So the challenge is providing those services. What are they, and what can the community afford? So we looked at the taxes being too high. Do we start cutting things? Or do we try and increase the revenue by increasing the tax base? And that's where we had to go. We haven't had any growth for years. I've been harping on it for years, and we're seeing the outcome of our efforts to do that. So, last year the tax increase was 0.86. So we're less than 1% of a levy increase a year ago, relying on increased assessment. So new buildings, new growth, new taxation, and that's what we want to do. And again, this year we're sitting at about 3.16. I think we'll get lower. Some of the others, I've got it in front of me, some of the others, Grey County is sitting at approximately 10% right now. Bruce County is somewhere between 6 and 8. South Bruce Peninsula approved a 4.99 or 5. Grey Highlands draft is sitting at 10%. Town of Blue Mountains is sitting at 12%. Again, it's not completed. Saugeen Shores is sitting about 6.5%. I think West Grey is somewhere at 12 to 15%. So if we can come in at 3 to 3.15, 3.16, then it's a continuation of what we've been doing for the last 4 years, I guess I should say. Yeah, just looking at stats, 2018, 1.77, 2020, 2.7, 2021, 2.7. So, the idea is to keep our increase in taxes low, let everyone increase around us more, and then we move down to become more comparable and to become more reasonable. So Kate presented our budget the other day. We got it to 3.16, but we started off with looking at the BMA study. So the BMA study is something that we sign into. It costs us a bit of money, and it compares us to other municipalities across Ontario. At the meeting, Kate Allen, the director of finance, et cetera, of corporate services, really compared us, used the charts just comparing us to the rest of Graham Bruce. And I would rather look at those comparables across all of Ontario. And my thinking is there isn't another Owen Sound and Graham Bruce. There's Saugeen Shores, there's the town of Blue Mountains. Both of them are growing in assessment and growing in population. But if you're looking at averages with Chatsworth or Georgian Bluffs or West Grey, Southgate, some of the others, North Bruce, we're not really the same, but we're very similar to a Stratford, a Strathroy, an Orangeville, an Aurelia, some of those places that are a little bit bigger that provide the services we do. So I'd rather look at the how we're doing relative to those others. And though it's not perfect, it's seeing where you are compared to and where you're moving compared to, where those trends are with those other municipalities. So a few years ago, when we look at our levy per year, per capita, we were, I think, 5th highest in the province per capita. How are our taxes per person? That's basically. Last year, we had it down that we were about 34th highest. So still in the high category, about 5 from the bottom of the high category. We've moved compared to others 15 places in 2022. So we're down now 10 into the mid category, and that's where we want to be. We don't want to be in low because that means we're not providing any services. We want to be in that mid category, and we finally moved into that mid category for 2022. And when we get the report in 2024 covering 2023, we know we're going to be further down into that. So, for the first time in several years, Owen Sound has moved into the mid range for overall growth, assessment growth. So we're now in the mid range instead of the low range for growth. That's where we want to be. Our tax levy per capita that I was just talking about, we're down into the mid range. That's where we want to be. Relative taxes for a detached bungalow, still high. But we've moved something like 25 positions from 10th highest down to about 35th highest. So moving that in the right direction. Multi-residents, we've improved 12 positions from high to the mid category. I don't have it in front of me. Maybe I do. Industrial, we sit in the low category. So that means we're extremely competitive with others to try and attract industry of all kinds to Owen Sound. Commercial sitting in the mid-level, so we're competitive with everyone else. One chart that kind of made me nervous, though, everyone says, oh, we want a zero. We don't want to pay an increase in taxes at all. Now, you remember Meaford a few years ago had zero tax increase, and they were eating into their reserves. Which meant they had to have 10% tax increases for 2 or 3 years to try and recoup that. Something that I do note is when we take in inflation, which is a reduction of spending power by the municipality, our budget is, our levy is actually a -6. So we've actually, when you take in inflation, we've actually lowered our spending ability by about 6% to keep us close to that 0% last year for levy increase. So
Are you saying that when inflation is taken into account, we're actually spending less? We're reducing our spending?
yes, if there's no inflation, I got to hesitate there.
Well, inflation is having a negative effect, having a serious impact on our ability to raise funds.
Yeah, if it costs, if we're buying 500 widgets for $50,
yeah,
and all of a sudden there's an inflation of those widgets, we could either take our $50 and buy 450 of them, or we could spend $65 to maintain the 500 that we need. So we're losing purchasing capacity, but we haven't added that to the taxpayer's role. That's what I'm trying to say. To maintain our purchasing abilities, we haven't increased with inflation. We haven't increased our taxes with inflation to maintain our taxing abilities. So by keeping our taxes really low, we're taking into account that inflation, and that's where we're outgunning everybody else by managing our money really tightly and doing a good job with our budgets.
Sure, it's a complex matter, to be sure. And everyone looks at certain numbers that, oh my goodness, my taxes are going to go up. But just a minute, which leads me to another question, which was a part of the budget, and that was one of the things that was proposed to go up was bag tags. And there was a motion that was passed, and I hate to use this, so forgive me. Social media says, "Oh, it's adopted." But it's not yet, because the budget hasn't been adopted, correct?
Well, no, the budget has not been adopted, and I think that will get further, I suspect that will get further consideration. However, the last time we raised bag tags was in 2011, so it has been 12 years, and when you take in that inflation rate, I think it takes us up to $3.25 per bag tag instead of $2.50. By adding that extra 25 cents to take it to $3.50 for 26 bag tags a year, if you put out one bag, that's an extra $6, $6.50. It's not breaking the bank. When if you put out two bags every 2 weeks, it's an extra $12. It's not breaking the bank. What has broken the bank, though, is that our cost when we set those bag tags in 2011 was $200 and something thousand on the taxpayer at that time, and that's gone up to $600,000. So our reliance on taxes for garbage and waste management has tripled, and we want to raise the bag tags enough to cover that. Now, that's not going to cover all of the cost of waste. It's only going to cover some of it. Why would you put it in bag tags and not on the taxes? Well, not every taxpayer, so industrial, commercial, gets to put a bag tag on the side of their bags and put them out at the curb. So for the bag tag portion, those commercial and industrial are taking their own waste and they're taking it to the dump and they're dealing with it on their own dollar. And they're still paying taxes on top of that. By leaving the cost of waste on taxes, it means more taxpayers are paying for it than are actually using the service. And the other thing that you want the bag tags to do is to remind people that they can cut down on what they're putting into that bag, put more into blue box. And the third thing is, when we got a report on waste management a year ago to go to green bin and bio waste, which will be, we're not going to put a bag tag on that, but that's going to reduce what you put into your garbage by 60, 80%. So much of what we put into our waste now is bio. The cost to add that, if we added it to tax for green bin to get it implemented, was, I remember thinking that it was going to double our taxes or more. I can't remember the exact amount, but it's going to cost an awful lot. If we can start to collect a little bit more in our bag tags now, it gives us a little more money, a little more room to move when we get to the organic waste in another year or so.
Sure. Well, as I recall, the organic waste, there's some capital costs associated with that, like a sorting area, which was north of $1 million. And
Yeah.
I mean, those are it was not a cheap option.
No, it isn't. But it's something that I think the province wants us to do, and we'd like to see provincial monies to support us. We'd like to see less going into just straight landfill versus being turned over and put back into fields, et cetera. So we need to do it. How are we going to afford it in a community of our size? So the bag tags, given the fact that it's been 12 years, given the fact that our costs have gone up, given that we want to move into green bin, and given that it's appropriate for actual people that are putting their garbage out to cover the costs, some more of the cost of those bags going out, versus putting it onto the tax burden of others that don't use the service, it seems appropriate.
Which also leads me to another question, and that is recycling. Because isn't the province introducing a new recycling program? So that weighs into this whole discussion of bag tags and waste too, doesn't it?
Yeah. So when bag tags came in, 20 years ago, I would think, in Owen Sound, the idea was to try and really encourage people to be conscious of just lazying out, putting it into the bag, starting to use the blue box, for papers, for tin cans, for at that point styrofoam, I think, for glass, and we don't see much glass in the shelves anymore. So federally and provincially, we have pushed the cost of blue bin onto the producers. So they're now starting to pay for that. So that's also freeing up money that we will put into a reserve to go towards green bin.
Sure. Well, it's a very broad topic, to say the least. It's quite broad, and I dare say a touch confusing at times, Ian. But we do our best to navigate through muddy waters.
Well, I'm sure everything they've just said in the last 15 or 20 minutes, people are going, what is he talking about? And it's really hard to explain. I don't know how many years I was on council, even, 2 or 3 before I started to get an understanding of all of this. But we were elected to represent the citizens of Owen Sound, to provide the best services that we can afford. That's what it all comes back to. And so we do a lot of reading, we do a lot of thinking, we acquire knowledge, we acquire experience, we bring 9 different backgrounds to council and try and represent the public to come up with the best idea. For those living in the public that look in once a year at the budget and go, oh my God, look at that bottom number, or look at that exchange, it's hard to judge it without having all the details of the background that we have. And as you can see, it's hard to explain.
Well, if it's any consolation, Ian, just before the first snowstorm of the season, the new street sweeper was out all night, and they were cleaning the streets of the leaves. And that new street sweeper did a really great job, and that was brand new this year, I believe. So
that's the last one didn't work.
$6.
But also think about how important that was to get the leaves off before the first snowfall, and all the that would be blocking storm drains and things on the road. And B, meaning that we have to vacuum out all the leaves that are stuck and clogging drains down the road, but flooding streets and those types of things. So yeah, that's one more thing that one more service the city provides.
But my point was that it's a nice new street sweeper that did its job well.
Yes, and we'll be around for 10 or 12 years.
Exactly. So let's talk about the process. Last Friday was the operational side of things. What's next? What's the next step?
Well, it gets reviewed and will come back to council again. There has to be a public meeting that's required under the provincial laws that people can come in and say their piece. If you want to have a look at that budget, of course, owensound.ca/, go to government in the top bar and then go into look for budgets, and you can go and review what we've reviewed. Process, over the years, we used to get this booklet of a whole bunch of numbers that set out supply. I was going to say pencils, but it'll say supplies in each department. And, it's not up to council and shouldn't be up to council to decide whether that supply line is high. And I know there's other councillors that disagree with me that we need more information. What we've done the last couple of years is, what was it last year that was good enough for this council last year to be approved? What's the bottom line with inflation of fuel, taxes, employee contracts, that show a certain percentage increase in their wages, et cetera, that's built into those? Where's that to now? Now, do we want to add this? Do we want to add that? And so staff is recommending, here's some things that are working that aren't working that we think we can cut or that we think we can add to that. So in the past, instead of coming in with, a 12% increase, and here's all the things we want, and this is what we recommend, and it's up to council to say, no, can't do that, no, can't do that. And it became, so much of a conflict with staff. The way Tim and Kate have brought it the last couple of years is, last year and this year especially, is perfecting it that here's your base. Now, here's what we suggest you add to it. You can or you can't. It's up to you guys. So it's made it a lot more simple. The other thing that we've done and started to do 5-year plans for capital. So we know that Alpha Street Hill has to be done and everything that's under the ground with it. We know that 9th Avenue East, north of 20th Street has to be done. We know that, these capital things that we know have to be done, we try and time them out, try and put as much money into reserves. So it smooths out. We don't end up with these big jumps that A, we're not doing it all at once, or B, we're not financing it all in 1 year. So, it's planned out over 5 to 10 years that, we know what's coming and we start planning out that capital budget. And that's where other municipalities maybe get into 12 and 15% tax increases because they're, that bridge has to be done now. Right. If you can plan that bridge is going to be done in 8 years, it gives you more options.
And that capital budget is a separate item, and that will come on in the new year. That's a separate session, and it'll come around in the new year.
Well, the way we've been doing it, I think it actually came in July as we plan out those 5 years, 5-year plans, where it used to be capital came. Well, actually, Dave, when I first started, operations came first, and then capital came after him. When we looked at, we in previous councils, we're going to have an umpteen% increase just in operations. Now we're looking at capital. Oh, we've got to cut that because that's going to mean it's going to be ridiculous for the taxpayers. Now I used to refer to it as borrowing from the bank of asphalt. Borrowing from the bank of bridge, whatever, that And when Deb was mayor, she started to try and do the capital first, because there's things we had to do in the operations as second. So now we're far ahead with the operations and long-term planning, and taking that next step from where Deb had us a few years ago, and add to it.
Well, at this point, Ian, we're going to take a quick break because, okay, my head's going to explode with all the numbers. So, friends, we will be right back. I'm David Shearman. This is Politically Speaking, and come right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
This is Rogers TV.
My Uncle Cheney was one of over 150,000 Indigenous children that were taken to residential schools between the 1800s and 1996. My uncle ran away from school wanting to get home to his mom and dad, and sadly he didn't make it and died of exposure. When Gord Downey found out about my late Uncle Cheney's story, he wrote Secret Path, a series of poems that became an album, then a graphic novel, a documentary, and a concert. Gord met my family, and together we formed the Gord Downey and Cheney Winjack Fund. Together we are sharing Secret Path and other reconciliation resources with legacy schools, setting up legacy spaces across Canada, and hosting events like Secret Path Week to inspire all Canadians to engage in reconciliation. Before he left us, Gord asked us all to do something.
You're gonna figure it out.
Will you join us? Together we can make Canada a better place.
Public transit, garbage pickup, parks and recreation programs, snow removal on your street. How can you stay informed about these and other important local services? Tune to City Council coverage on Rogers TV. See your community leaders at work on Rogers TV City Council coverage.
Hi, and welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest is Mayor Ian Boddy of the city of Owen Sound, and oh, my head still hurts. We've been talking about numbers and budgets for the last half hour. Ian, how's your head?
Well, about the same as usual.
Okay. All right. Let's move into another area that is certainly topical for Owen Sound, and that is development. And I noticed in the most recent council meeting there was something a little, I didn't understand it, so maybe you can help. Skydev, who own the land, I think, is it the old RCA building property, the old RCA
Yes.
property on East Bay Shore Road. They asked that a plan for that their plan be removed, and I wonder if you could explain why that was done and what that meant, because I'm confused.
Well, there'd been a previous owner that put together a site plan of houses and different things, and then they sold their property with site plan already been approved, glued to the land, sticking to the land, of course, because it was approved for that piece of property. They've come in with a different plan, so they have done a zoning application to change the zoning, official plans, different things, because they want to do apartments, not houses. So their next step is to get that site plan off that was old and that they're not following, and then they'll bring their their site plan, et cetera, and get site plan approval for their plans that will fit the property. So that was an application to remove the old site plan and allow them to move forward.
Okay, because one of the things I was a learning for me is that site plans live forever. That if they're not canceled, they can be 100 years old and still be in place. I've seen site plans, or at least municipal plans, for development that from the 1880s, and it's really just roads and streets is what it is. It's not the kind of sophisticated stuff we see today. But I can see the point of why it's got to be removed to bring in something else now.
You're talking about different things there. So a plan of subdivision or a street plan from the 1880s would be there forever. The site plan is more a development site plan. And if I recall correctly, it has to be redlined or renewed. Remember sometime within the last 2 years, Red Hawk came back to have their site plan extended for their property up in 8th Street. So site plans specifically don't last forever because provincial requirements and things could change, in that the drainage plans, water, wastewater, things, engineering requirements of the province could change. So site plans can change. So they actually don't sit there forever. And off the top of my head, I think the site plan for this property had been renewed or extended a couple of years ago, but I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it did.
I think you're right.
So this removes, in any case, this removes one that they're not going to follow, and then allows them to move forward with the one that they will.
So this is stay tuned for part 2.
Yeah, and site plans, of course, now don't go through council. They go through planning and have to be approved in 30 days or 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is, by the province, which is somewhat frustrating. We've probably got over 3,000 residential units approved in site plans. And then there's, once that gets done, the municipality has to do it within a certain period of time. The developer doesn't have to move forward just as quickly as you say. It could be a couple of years. Naturally, once they get those site plans approved, then they're going to go to their banks or whoever's financing them to get the approval to move ahead. And then, they're going to borrow to put in the water, the street water, the curbs, the really expensive stuff for a developer to move forward with. So it all takes time, but it's naturally we want it happening faster.
Of course, because there's a real need for housing anywhere in Ontario. And the provincial government has promised it will build 1.5 million homes and so on and so forth. But I'll be honest with you, given interest rates and capital availability, I'm scratching my head saying, is this realistic? Are we going to see? I'm not asking you to say it is or it isn't. My point is just that's my observation. That's all.
And we're not one of those municipalities that he gave strong mayor's powers to and building housing goals that they targets that they've got to reach. I wouldn't mind having those targets if it came with provincial money. I did. Smarter super mayor's powers makes no sense for us. It maybe makes sense in Toronto. It doesn't for us. So that's just non-starter. But anyway, the other thing is we've just been talking about taxes and talking about keeping taxes low because we're bringing in $1 million of new assessment or new taxes, which allows us to bring the tax rate down and the increase down for everybody that lives here. So that's the other side of the coin for us. We want those developments happening to keep our taxes reasonable. Once we hit sort of dead center or closer, then we want to still be responsible with our tax increases, but it's going to give us more money to provide better services. So, it's low taxes or reasonable taxes and it's better services. And the more we can grow and have more people here, the better.
Mm-hmm. Well, it will be interesting to see how this plays out over the next 5 years and where we will be 5 years from now. Because, I guess I'm just not an optimist around the ability for either governments or private industry to make a success out of this one. We won't get I don't believe we'll get 1.5 million homes. We'll get a lot, but we're not going to get that.
That's that. I don't really care about that. I care about what's happening in Owen Sound, not the province. What the province wants. And in 2024, we're going to see another big jump because it's about 9 months from the time the occupancy certificate is handed out to a new apartment, new housing, until it comes online. So looking strictly at assessment growth, focusing just on that when we're talking about budgets, 2024 is also going to be a very good year as some of the buildings come on. And I want enough labor to be able to attract some industry and some commercial. I want enough housing to be able to provide for that labor that's coming in. We are going to see people moving here from elsewhere in Ontario. Our housing costs are still cheaper. We've got an amazing standard of living. A friend of mine was talking to somebody that's living here that had come from a foreign country, and they were here for a while, and then they went to Toronto. And as soon as they moved back, working in a business that they're trained for, they wanted to move back to Owen Sound because they wanted to live in Canada, and they didn't see Toronto as representing a true Canadian lifestyle as Owen Sound is. So they came back and took jobs that weren't necessarily in line with what they're trained to do because they love living here. And we're going to see more of that in the coming years. So we want jobs for them. That's actually what Shakir said from Flato. Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm bringing a lot of new residents to your town, so you're going to have to find them jobs. It was like, perfect. As we know, we've got challenges filling some jobs that we've got jobs for them, and we want to have more jobs for them. And that's the whole evolution of more industry, more jobs, more industry to have more jobs, more houses to have more labor, and keep that circle going.
Sure. Well, like I say, it's a constant. I always keep my eyes on the Flato subdivision and Red Hawk and the other subdivisions just to see if are there any is there any earth moving up there. But we'll just wait and see.
Well,
it's not going to move between now and April, I guess.
Earth has, of course, been moved, and water and wastewater and those types of things have gone in on the site where the hotel is going to go. Certainly, and Pet is building out behind South Bridge and back in there. We thought we'd start to see some soil being moved around at Flato. The sign went up, so I'm still confident that we'll see it in the spring. We thought we'd see it this fall, but he wants to move ahead and he's keen. Certainly, as we just talked about, Skyline is moving their plans forward. So much happens on paper, in the planning department before we see before I cut the ribbon.
For sure.
Barry's 97 units, I think it is, over at 28th Street West, I think is full occupancy now. So, that's a big boost. Yeah.
And I noticed that just in my own neighborhood, Barry's got 4 infill developments, and they have been completed. They're all just before the snow flew. There's the landscaping has been done, and I've seen trucks running around, doing the plumbing and all that good stuff. So there's stuff out there.
Yeah, there's very few building lots left in the west side. I think he's got 2 or 3 going down towards. I can't think what Forest Heights. I can't remember what he calls it. Going down towards the cemetery. There's 3 or 4 vacant lots in there, and that's it. So
Woodland Acres.
Woodland Acres. Yeah. So it's the west side is almost complete, and so the next frontier is up 8th Street up in the Sydenham Heights, and that's why the city was thinking ahead when we put in the water and wastewater up there a couple of years ago, and of course we'll be reimbursed for that.
Which reminds me that there was some discussion, not at this meeting, but at the previous council meeting, about the 9th Street East work on that has to be done yet. And that's a big capital project as well. It's just in the pipeline and in the planning stages, but that's another big piece up Superior and up through Superior Street up there.
Oh, 9th Avenue. Sorry, you said 9th Street.
Ave, not 9th Street, 9th Ave. Ninth
So,
Ave.
water and wastewater has been replaced, and if you went up 7th past the Pepsi plant into the back of Magua Cahill or Call, however they pronounce it,
The old Leons.
Leons, if that helps. Yeah, so a lot of pipes have gone in. So you always want looping with water so that you don't get dead ends that chlorine can build up. So it's gone in like up 6th Street, up 7th Street from 9th Avenue, so the courthouse county building. And then the next stretch will be up the hill to Superior Street, and that's the next phase. Yeah, 9th Avenue, as well as 9th Avenue north of 20th Street.
Right.
And all the planning and everything's moving ahead for Alpha Street West Side for construction in the next year or so.
Hey, we'll have another construction season here in Owen Sound.
Always, yeah.
Hey,
and again,
I remember
that's catching up on the spending the Bank of Asphalt, right? That's the stuff that maybe could have been done before, and we didn't do because we didn't do long-term planning, and that's where we are now, and we're in good shape. Sure.
Well, let's turn on to some happy stuff that we've seen in the city in the last little while. We've had some parades.
This wasn't happy stuff. Come on, this is the taxes are good news. The BMA positioning is good news. The long-term planning is good news. For I'm kind of a little cocky about this stuff because I think we're in good shape and we didn't used to be. So,
spoken like a true politician.
Well, but it's factual. That's you get to brag when you're doing the good things, and you don't have to make it up when as if you're not. Yeah, we had
Absolutely.
a great Santa Claus parade and a lot of people downtown, which is so good to see. Flipping on the Festival of Northern Lights, they thought they had one of their best audiences in a long time. And yeah, Midnight Madness this Friday night with more stores downtown and more events and more going on. So lots going on in downtown Owen Sound.
Well, just as an observation, what I am seeing is that while we have businesses closing for a variety of reasons, very shortly thereafter, the space is filled with a new store or a new restaurant, or a business will transition from one owner to another with a short closure in between. I don't recall that particular phenomenon being all that common. And is my perception off, or is that actually happening?
No, our occupancy rate in downtown has been really good for the last couple of years. There's not a lot of empty storefronts. That there might be a couple that don't want to have anybody in them, but basically we're in good shape there. There's an entrepreneurial spirit that's out there, and people investing in opening businesses and moving forwards. And I remember driving through Chatham years ago after one of the car plants, and there was one old dive of a bar in the corner and a couple of stores open, and the rest were like blocks that were empty. And I remember Barrie for a little while after malls hitting, I guess that's 40 years ago, going up on the hill, the downtown was devastated. We've never hit rock bottom here, contrary to, if you live here, you think it's really bad, but when you go and look elsewhere, you realize that we're in really good shape. We're down at AMO in August. I was in and out for the day, but others were down around downtown London, and it's having a real difficult time, both with the numbers of homeless and empty locations. And we're in better shape than people realize.
True. So let's look at kind of your first year. You've had a new council in this year that was elected almost exactly a year ago. What's your reflection on the current council after year one?
Well, I think Monday, December 4th, was probably our first meeting of the second year. So it's very current. I really like the council that I'm working with. I said that to Tim in the budget meeting, after the budget meeting. You've got some good personalities there. You don't have anybody dominating, or you have an exchange of ideas. There's a little bit of teasing that went on, but it wasn't mean-spirited. And everybody, and again, 9 different opinions, which is what you want. You don't want anyone afraid to state their opinions. So I'm really liking this council. I'm liking the 9 people that we've got there, liking the way we get along and how we approach things. And, everybody comes to a different perspective. New councilors are learning, and it's when you go into a council, there's a culture that's there, that every council will be different, and each time we've had a change of council, we've had a change of culture to a certain extent. But a new councilor is adapting to the council, not necessarily the other way around, and that's. So, we're seeing great growth and change and learning and perspectives. But I think we've got a really good group.
Good. And of course, a reminder that people can watch all of the open sessions of council on either the city website or here on Rogers TV. And it's one of those things that, hey, democracy in action. Democracy in action.
On our website's neat, so owensound.ca/go to government up in the top corner. When the bar opens up down the left side, go to council and committees, and then a calendar will pop up, and you can go into the meeting you want to look at and watch the whole meeting there, or else you can watch different topics and click on them and get the video and see what was discussed. And technology is amazing. It's amazing for us in council to be able to have people be able to see what it was we were thinking and discussing.
Well, I've actually bookmarked the council, that's councils and committees section of the website, because it does give you full access to the agendas beforehand, and the council meetings itself, both live and the recording, as well as committees. So, if you want, you can sit and watch all the committees too.
Well, and I know even a number of councillors will go in and review what went on in a committee that they don't sit on, just so they've got a flavor for when it comes to the council table and a little more understanding.
Not quite as exciting as the leader of the opposition and the prime minister in question period.
I don't have time. I hear that, but I don't have time to watch what's going on.
You're lucky. You're lucky.
And I'm still, because municipality is a creature of the province, I'm more likely now to pay more attention to what's going on at the province and the federal level. And that traditionally I was more interested in federal politics, but I'm more likely to, be watching what's going on at the province, certainly with energy in this area. I'm actually down next Wednesday to a minister's event with regard to isotopes. So, in contact, the Minister of Energy, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, those people are economic development, infrastructure, those are people that we're more in contact with, so we're paying more attention to their decisions than what's going on at the federal level, which we're more downstream from them. So,
sure. Well, speaking of energy, I thought we'd be hearing from TC Energy on the TC Energy project before the end of November, but I haven't heard anything. I guess I'll have to wait to talk to Ross Kentner next.
I don't think there's been any announcements there, but you're right. They were waiting for a certain approval from the Minister of Energy, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As to whether they can take the next step to go ahead with it.
Yeah.
And the next step in the planning process, just so
The planning process, because that's a
yeah.
big one. And speaking of energy, Ian, there was something at the last council meeting about a energy storage project in Meaford, but just outside of Owen Sound, that is in the pipeline. And I believe Deputy Mayor Grieg attended the open house for that.
Yeah, because it's not in Owen Sound, it's in Meaford. They held their an open house out in Bognor, and that's why. It is something that's proposed for the farm up at Superior Street and Highway 6 and 10 at the top of the hill, across from where we used to get ice cream. So it's going to have an effect on, Owen Sound basically when it's at its gate, if it goes ahead. You got to realize, if we get off of fossil fuels, and we're talking about how do you make steel, how do you make glass, how do you make, to get to net zero, there's going to have to be big changes to produce electricity and hydrogen. We're the first municipality, and it'll be announced the next couple of days. We're the first municipality that's joined the Ontario Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association. Recognizing that that's where the world's got to go, and we want to be a part of it and ahead of it and do our share. Recognizing climate change and trying to plan that out. So, we're all going to have to make changes, not only in our daily lives, but what goes on the lands around us. Sure.
Well, it'll be another interesting topic of conversation to going down the road, this whole energy thing, isotopes, hydrogen, everything. So it'll be one of those things I'm certain will be of conversation and discussion around the city council table.
Yep.
Yeah. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Very briefly, we alluded to this at the very beginning, but the county levy also comes into play here. You're a county councillor. When will that get finalized, or do you have further discussions to do on the county council?
I think all day Friday this week and all day Friday next week. I think we've got it coming back up. When you're paying your tax dollars, it's not all coming to Owen Sound. Some of it's going to Board of Education, some of it's going to the city, some of it's going to the county. And I think it's something like 20%. I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't. It's going to the county. So the county is providing social services. They are providing housing. They're providing for the homeless. They're providing roads that connect in between. So, you've got two different governments that are providing services that benefit the city of Owen Sound and everybody across Grey County. So that budget has to be deliberated. It started off quite high, 14%, and I think with the new growth across the county, it was really it was 14% increase in spending, about 12% after growth. And we're going
to have to come back to that at our next meeting, Ian, because I'm getting the hook.
Very
okay,
short.
So
okay.
Thank you so much, Ian Boddy, Mayor of Owen Sound. It's always a pleasure. And thank you, friends, for being a part of Politically Speaking. Yes, we'll talk again.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
I'm number 24, Tace Jordan.
And number 21, Harry Nancy.
Tune in to Attack Rap
on Rogers TV.
It isn't the heavy trays that make the job difficult, or the fast pace you need to keep up. It's not working another double because someone called in sick. What makes the